he had 2 weeks to get ready for Indiana, right? I think if I'm not mistaken, and I could be wrong here, I want to say Indiana, I think they played last week, if I'm not mistaken here. Let me see. I've got the schedule up here.
Yeah, they lost to Cincinnati, right? 45-24.
I think so. Was that last week? That was they didn't get it. They didn't get a bye week, did they?
No, they rattled off 3 straight. Lost to Cincinnati, who we know is a relevant, obviously decent team. And then they played us. So
yeah,
I mean, Indiana's not a bad team. I mean, I actually thought they looked pretty decent tonight. Like, I mean, I'm obviously a biased Nebraska fan, but like, not a bad team. I mean,
no,
but that where I'm at is like you touched on it, Christian. I'll end this thing with like, far as my thoughts is like, I just want Nebraska fans as a whole. You're not on this podcast if you're not in Nebraska. Let's freaking be honest about it. It's like, I just want everybody to realize, like, look, it's this season's not like, if you expected us to be 12-1 or undefeated or whatever the hell you're looking at, this podcast obviously isn't for you, but like, we're relevant here. We're real. I knew that coming in. I knew it was going to be a tough season, even though we have a PUD schedule for the most part compared to last year and the year before. But it's like, Nebraska needs to build up to this. You don't get good overnight. Anybody that's ever done anything for a living knows that. It takes time, it takes hard work, it takes practice. We're there. Now we're in a rebuilding season. Like Christian said, it's going to take 2-3 years. It is. I hate to say that again. I've been saying that for years. Scott Frost, I did it with him. I gave him a honest, fair chance, and I want Scott to be here probably more than anybody. Didn't work though, so it is what it is. And like Christian said, we got a part of the schedule here where you can rattle off a couple wins, and let's just look forward to next week. That's it. If we can get a W, whether it's ugly, whether we kick the shit out of somebody, I don't care. Build a little momentum in that Michigan game. And I know everybody's thinking like, oh, Michigan's like your kind of, yardstick of like how good you really are. But you know what, man? That's 3 weeks away. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about next week. I hope Christian invites me back and we can talk a little more football, and hopefully we're on a 4-3 record or something like that. And we're, going with some positive momentum. And people are starting to talk about Nebraska. Like, man, they really turned it around with Mickey Joseph. And I think that's I think that's realistic with him. Like, I honestly think the team responded tonight very well to him. I don't know if Scott was the coach tonight. I don't know if we would have won this game. I really don't. When it was tied 21-21, I think everybody's kind of thinking like, yeah, we're going to find a way to lose. I actually thought Nebraska's offense kind of found a way to win tonight. I actually personally thought that. I'm like, damn, they ran the ball when they needed to. Grant, we gave him the ball. Thompson made that long throw to Palmer for the touchdown. It was huge, man. I mean, I know it sounds like minuscule in the grand scheme of things, but like, damn, man, that was something I haven't seen in a while, Christian. I think you probably feel kind of the same way if you've been watching Nebraska football, like I know you have. Like, you're probably thinking, damn, like we made a play to win a game. I don't care who the hell the opponent is. You know what I mean? Like, to win a game, that's important to us right now. I don't care who the opponent is. It's more about, hey, we found a way to win. It wasn't the prettiest game. We had a lot of penalties tonight. I think everybody would agree the penalties were ridiculous tonight. But you know what I mean? Like, we won a game. We got the W. Got a little momentum now. What are we going to do now? You know what I mean? Like, what are we going to do to build on that? Go ahead, Christian.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think it's down the stretch especially, they did a really good job at calling a balanced, game plan. I mean, they were able to run the ball when they wanted to. I felt like throughout this game, they were able to block it well. Again, the big thing that kind of we sort of leaned back on in this was the penalties, man. The penalties were the biggest thing throughout this.
Yeah.
You got to clean up. But I feel like if I had to say why I think the penalties were such a big issue in this game, I think a lot of it just really had to do with, the fact that Mickey Joseph, and he talks about this in the post-game press conference. Now, I haven't had a chance to go back and watch this post-game press conference, obviously, because we pretty much jumped on right after and we're talking about it. But I think one of the big things that Mickey Joseph would probably tell you in this was they've done a lot more, they've done a job at focusing on doing individual drills, like tackling drills and slowing it down and doing some of these things more individually. And so that's great because that's what you should have been doing leading up to this, right? That's the big thing that you should have been doing leading up to this season, so that when you get in season, you can do more scrimmages, so you can get these guys sort of going and sort of like we talk about, right now they're like this, and they're just sort of figuring out how to play and do their job individually. But as you get into the season, as you start getting on and you get a quarter of the way through, you need to be like this. You need to be more aligned in that. Yep. And they're getting there. Again, it's one of those things where there's a lot of different things that's really, in my opinion, attacking this team and sort of, difficult to sort of overcome, 5 games into the season. But I think that they're figuring it out. And I think that, again, Bill Bush, I think Mickey Joseph, Mark Whipple, they're getting these guys in the right positions. Again, the one thing that I would like to see next year, and I've been very adamant, I will stand on the roof and I will, damn it, I'm gonna throw my hands on the table and say this. Figure out, we've already talked about this. Probably Mickey Joseph will be back next year. You got to figure out a way to get Mark Whipple back next year as the offensive coordinator alongside of Casey Thompson. You get those guys back, then it's going to be a lot easier of a transition. Now, all of a sudden, you get those 3 guys. Yeah, you get that core group of guys back going into next year. Man, you think about it, some of the best players that we have on this team, Trey Palmer, Anthony Grant, Casey Thompson, they can all come back next year. And I think that would be, as far as I'm concerned, on a 1-3 team, I would hope that they wouldn't certainly declare for the NFL, and going forward. But that's just selfish reasons here. They have a good opportunity to come back into this thing, man. And they have a really good opportunity not to just sort of jump into next year and just discredit this year. I'm just saying, if they can continue doing some great things and building that momentum, and they get each other back next year and they can stay healthy, man, this can be a special group of guys next year. You go ahead.
No, to interrupt you on that, and I apologize. I think you just touched on the biggest topic. This is what we've needed. You need a core group of guys to take us to a level, whether it's a bowl game this year, 7-8 wins, 60 wins, I don't give a shit, to come back and set the tone for those kids that are younger than those dudes to build. Hey, we're on a building season. We have a chance we have to improve on what we did last year, have a shot at 7 wins, 8 wins, 9 wins. I know it sounds so crazy to say that as a Nebraska fan. I grew up in the 90s, but you have a chance, you just said it, to put it to a standard. And that's what I want Nebraska to be held to. Been held to 4 wins, Christian, the last 4 years, basically. I'm sick of 4 wins, man. I mean, you could have brought you in to win 4 wins. No offense. Or me. I mean, honestly, come on. I want the guys to take that as a personal slight to hey, we're going to get to a bowl game this year. Win that bowl game. Build on that. You know what I mean? Keep building. That's how college football works. That's how the landscape is. I don't care whether you're an Alabama fan, a Georgia fan, LSU fan, Ohio State fan. They all base it off that. You know what I mean? It's based off what you've done lately, and always lately is always the end of last year, right? So that's where I want Nebraska to get to. And you said it, we have a chance to actually have those guys come back and do something. We don't have control over who comes back. Anthony Grant, I mean, personally, man, that dude's got a chance to be a stud in the NFL. But if he does decide to come back, Thompson, Palmer, you got some guys that can play, man. Let's be honest, on the offensive side of the ball, especially. If we can build on that, be better than what we are this year as far as getting a coaching staff that's not fired or getting kicked out every other week. We need some stability here too at Nebraska. It's been hard to say that word, but you know what I mean? Build on something. And that's where I want to see us get to. I'm not saying that every year we're going to be, 10-3, but Nebraska, to me, talent wise, they have a lot of talent on this team. Nobody's going to convince me any different. They're not. You're just not. We have players that can play, especially in the Big Ten. And that's where I want to see, like you said, just build on something, people coming back, people buying into the program. I think Mickey Joseph is that guy. I think he's a very influential guy. I think he's a guy that people like. I think the players like him. His methods are old school, not for everybody, for sure. Not probably most kids coming out of high school. Oh God, I'm gonna have to work my ass off to get a spot. Well, sorry. Mickey Joseph is one of those guys. Well, I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'll find somebody else. And I'm okay with that. I'm totally fine with that. I want people that buy into the program and give a shit and want to play and want to be on the field and want to work hard. And I think you're kind of starting to see that a little bit tonight. We were tied at 21, dude. And I don't know if I could say that with Scott, that the guys would have responded the way they did tonight. I know it's only a 35-21 win or whatever the hell the score was. It was enough for me to be like, hey, Mickey Joseph, you got to win in the Big Ten. That's kind of a lot more than Scott Frost has done the last how many years, right? I mean, I'm not, and that's not shade against Scott. I'm just saying, like, hey, found a way to win a game at home against a team that was 3-1. You can look at the record and laugh all you want, but we were also 1-3. So I'll kick it back to you, Christian.
No, I think you're exactly right. I mean, it's about figuring out ways, it's about figuring out ways to win, man. And that's really what it comes down to. Again, it's just kind of like Conrad Ferguson here says, winning is a process, and we are now on the right path. We keep winning, and we have our new head coach and defensive coordinator. Look, I don't know if Mickey Joseph and Bill Bush are going to be on this team. Well, I know Mickey Joseph will be, but I don't know if Mickey Joseph is going to be the head coach or Bill Bush is going to be the defensive coordinator next year. One thing that I can tell you, no matter what, and this is the absolute worst case, the worst case is, we don't win another game throughout the year. Mickey Joseph doesn't, retain the head coaching job, but they keep him on as sort of a wide receiver coach. Here's what I'd like to see. And this is, again, the worst case scenario. I want to see a defensive-minded coach come into the program. I want to see a defensive-minded coach take over the other side of that. Leave Whipple, leave Casey Thompson, leave Mickey Joseph in place, and let those guys coach. Let them do their thing because, again, they're building that chemistry. They're building what they need to do, right? I like Bill Bush. I think, he, for what he sort of stepped into, this year, in a week, within 2 weeks, he did a really good job. Him and Mickey both did a really good job at setting the right tempo. They set the right expectations. They made those little tweaks, which was, we're going to be physical. We're going to focus more on the fundamentals of tackling, and we're actually going to tackle in practice, and we're going to start laying that foundation. They did a really good job on a short week of being able to come in and be able to sort of lay that foundation in 2 different weeks, here coming into the Indiana game. And I think that you saw that throughout the game. The tackling was nowhere near as bad as what it's been in different weeks, right? And the other thing, too, is, especially on the perimeter, right? Now, we've had some missed tackles. We had some pass interferences. We had a lot of different plays where, Indiana should have been like where there's 3 and outs, and then we commit a pass interference play or whatever have you, and we keep the drive extended. Again, that's going to happen. I think a lot of that just has to happen with when you're a coach. You have to prioritize certain things. The biggest thing they're prioritizing is the fundamentals. They're prioritizing being a physical team, which is tackling and doing a lot of those circuits and a lot of those drills and sort of scrimmaging throughout the games and the weeks. And that's the big thing. They're trying to get inexperienced guys experience. And I think that through the course of this, the penalties are going to naturally start coming down. As the penalties start coming down, as you start getting these guys, especially in that secondary, a lot more experience, it's going to be a lot better. I mean, tonight I saw something that I haven't seen all season, and that was, the commentators were out here circling, on a big 3rd down play, our secondary, and how they were pretty much manned up and the coverage was perfect on them, right? They did a fantastic job at pretty much covering up, Indiana on a 3rd down play. And that led to a coverage sack. And I think that's the big thing, man. I mean, that really, to me, that's one of the biggest things about this that you can expect for this team. But, kind of with that, I think, Chris, I'm going to throw it back to you for just a second, get your closing thoughts as we transition into Rutgers. And then, we're going to call it a night because we're quickly coming up on almost 12:15 at night here.
No, I don't have a lot to add on what you brought up, honestly, man. As a realistic fan, dude, and I've been around for a while. The comments section is everybody's putting out good comments here, man. You're talking about winning is a process, and we are now on the right path. You're right. No, you're exactly right, Conrad. I mean that's where we're at. So as far as Rutgers goes, that's the only thing I think Nebraska should focus on. I know Mickey's doing that. I know that just listening to him talk. So it's super evident. We win that game, whether we win by 7, we win by 30. I don't give a shit. Like, I just want Nebraska to come out there as a team, everybody play hard. And I know that sounds like such a cliche, like, oh, yep, that's what we want every week. No, but I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, we're in a state of rebuild right now, and Mickey's a guy that's in there, and he this guy cares about Nebraska. If you guys don't follow him, dude, follow him. Like, he's crazy passionate about this program. I love it about him. And if you're an old school person, I might be relatively young compared to most people that followed the old school Nebraska football. This guy, like, lights a fire under my ass, and I'm old. So, like, just listen to him talk. It is what it is. And we might not win the most, tonight I would say it was like not a really impressive win. We found a way to win. And that's all I care about. And that's, I think, what Nebraska fans kind of need right now. Building into next year, building into the future, I think we're there. I think we have the players. I think we have the talent. Especially this heart of the schedule to me. Like, if you're a Nebraska fan, like, look at the schedule right now. God damn, like, you telling me that Rutgers, Illinois, Penn State, you name all these teams in the Big Ten, and we're not playing half those teams, but I'm just saying, like, Big Ten is kind of up for grabs, in my opinion. Like, there's not a team that, to me, other than Ohio State, that I would actually be afraid of. We got a chance. I know we got Michigan. We got, Iowa. Come on, Iowa can't move the ball on offense. Like, I mean, we have a chance here to do something, and I want the momentum going into it. So we have this, like, kind of 3-week stretch here to kind of build some momentum, get us kind of honestly back on track. I don't care if Scott was a coach. I don't care if we would be 5-0, 7-0. It doesn't matter. So we got to win those big games, and I think we got to show up to those games. And I think that, like, if we can get just some positive forward momentum, sounds really super cliche, but, like, if we can do that, I think we have a chance too. That's my closing thoughts. Excuse me, Christian, but, like, I mean, I don't think we have much else than that. Like, I don't have much to add to that. Like, Rutgers is Rutgers, man, and we should get a W. I just hope we look impressive doing so. Go ahead, man.
I think you're exactly right. I think that Mickey Joseph is going to be I think he's going to come out with this, and I think he's going to have them juiced up and ready to go. Look, juice and all that stuff we talk about, we saw that in the Oklahoma game. It only goes so far, right? If you get out-coached in certain games, in certain instances, you're going to get your ass handed to you, and it doesn't matter how excited you are for the game. It just matters how long have you been a really well-coached team,
right.
and that plays into it, right? How those fundamentals been done and sort of laid out there. I think going into this Rutgers game against a guy like, Greg Schiano, he's a great coach. I mean, he's a really, really good coach. I think the biggest thing is going to be, I would argue we're the more talented team. They're the better coach team. Can Mickey sort of make up for that gap that we talk about? Like, it reminds me of Northwestern and Pat Fitzgerald and all this all over again. And again, this is the big test. If he comes out and he beats, Rutgers, and we end up beating Rutgers by 2 or 3 touchdowns, all right, we've made it to the next week. We got a little more hype going into the Mickey Joseph, Bill Bush, Mark Whipple train here, right?
Sure.
And I think that would be a huge thing here, right? One of the last things I want to say before we jump off here is, Conrad Ferguson, he says he agrees, right? We do need to keep Whipple. Look at the points we're scoring, and we're not even hitting on all cylinders. We keep these 3 coaches, and we will become scary. Exactly.